right, 22 minutes before 8 o'clock. Thank you so much indeed for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, most parents agree that one of the most uncomfortable conversations they've ever had with their children is about sexual abuse. According to this year's South African Child Gauge Survey, 1 in 3 children under the age of 18 has been a victim of sexual violence and physical abuse as well. So the question really is, when does one talk to children about this, and what exactly do you say? How do you go about doing it? Dr. Shaheda Omar from the Teddy Bear Clinic is here with us to advise us on this subject. Good morning to you, Doc. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning.
Well, I believe this is one of the most important conversations that we should be having. I mean, if one looks at the stats, as I said on my introduction. But the main question really is, how do you go about doing it?
Well, that I think is so important that we start as young as possible. As soon as a child starts developing vocabulary, the moment they start languaging and dialoguing, that is the ideal opportunity for parents to engage with their children, to enable them to identify the different body parts. And there are absolutely beautiful opportunities for that when it's their bath time routine, bedtime routine, or with your very young child, even when they're being dressed or undressed, with diapers being changed, to get to children to identify each body part, starting with non-sexualized body parts, from the head to the eyes, to the ears, to the eyebrows, mouth, teeth, and going down to the chest, and of course the genitalia, and right down to the feet. And I think that is where parents actually create a platform to give children the permission to talk about their genitalia, their parts of the body. And what is also important is that parents need to use correct names for the body parts.
I wanted to come to that part because really some concerns with some parents is that they fear they may be too graphic or even confusing to their children.
And yes, and you know, we get children who come in for therapy and they would identify all idiosyncratic phrases, like for a girl would say her vagina is a blommerkie or a punani, and the ideal is for parents to identify the correct names and to get them to identify the functions of those body parts, of each body part. So if we go to the eyes, what is that? And the child says, eyes, what do you do with your eyes? So it's normalizing it. It's not just fixating on the genitalia. So when we come to the genitalia, and we would ask the child, so what is that? And then if the child gives a funny name, you're going to give the correct name and say what actually happens with that. So I think that is a message, a key message that parents need to start with young children and continue. And of course, the conversation and dialogue becomes more progressive in terms of the safe touches, the unsafe touches, and the unwanted touches.
And really, still on the issue of names, it's often said that perpetrators use certain language and tactics to sort of convince a child. What are the most typical ones?
Well, I mean, a perpetrator would definitely use names and even talk to a 4-year-old and say, "I love your breasts," or "your boobies." You know, use those kind of names, or "your cookie," for the vagina to a girl. So those are the things that we need to move away from, steer clear from, and talk to the children. And perpetrators' modus operandi is coercing, using threats, using manipulation as well. So it's not always threatening the child, but they groom the child. They break down those barriers where they eventually get the child to enlist and cooperate without the child realizing what is going on. And I think that is what we need to alert parents and children, to which we do all the time. And so when I say they use manipulation, they actually use social reinforcers or tokens, bribery. They would give gifts in exchange. Absolutely, something simple like sweets, or taking the child to the movies, or engaging in the...
So they create that bond.
Absolutely. Well, it's a misuse of that relationship, and of course that constitutes abuse.
And I believe, Doc, it gets easier because research has also repeatedly shown that people who abuse children sexually are people that we know, family, friends, or even relatives.
Indeed. I think that is so important. We need to be aware, and we need to alert all caregivers, all family members, that it's not the stranger danger, the fantasy that we've been led to believe, but actually in 80 to 90% of the cases, it is somebody closely connected to the child. It could be a relative, it could be a friend, it could be a neighbor. It's the nice next door person. It's anybody that has easy access and availability to the child.
Yeah, and I believe one of the mistakes that we make as a society is to actually think that these things only happen to girl children. So these are the conversations that we should also be having to our boys as well.
So you are absolutely correct, because it is a misnomer, a misperception to think that only girls are victims of sexual violence. 1 in 4 boys are victims of sexual violence, and we find that it is more difficult for a male child to come out and say this has happened. But we are very pleased that we're getting a lot more referrals and many more disclosures where male children are coming out of the closets and making those disclosures.
All right, Doc, we'll leave it at that. Of course, as I said, this is a discussion that we should continuously have. But thank you so much indeed for coming through as we are observing 16 days of activism against the abuse of children and women.
Thank you. And I just want to caution the viewers out there that, they need to look out for the protection of children. Children deserve our protection. They are our future leaders.
Oh, yes, indeed they are. Thank you so much to Dr. Shaheda Omar from the Teddy Bear Clinic. For more information, you can go to their website, www.ttpc.org.za.